How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. That's what I am. An old head. These young coaches, I tell you what, I can't figure these jokers out. They got a backpack on and tight something. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting on my nerves. I can tell you that. I know what ain't in the backpack. A string and a let me paint that line for you. That ain't in there. That's for sure. I had a kid the other day. He said, "Hey, Coach, didn't Christopher Columbus write the Pledge of Allegiance?" I said, "He sure did. He also played quarterback for the 1985 Chicago Bears." He said, "Bet." That happened. Sun Coaches, Season 6, where coaches come and tell their stories. Some of them are funny. Some of them is going to help you in your coaching journey. Not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Sun Coaches, brought to you by Titan Sensor. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A, Georgia State Champion, Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, and today I'm glad to be joined by the head coach of Discovery High School, Coach Roy Groshek. Thanks for being on with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Well, Coach Groshek, I, for one, know that you aren't from Georgia. You are from Wisconsin originally. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. From a town called Cudahy, Milwaukee area. I usually just tell people I'm from Milwaukee. It makes it a lot easier.
So growing up, was it a small town outside as a suburb, or were you a country kid, or how'd you grow up?
Yeah, it's if you were to look at a map and you look at where the city of Milwaukee is right on Lake Michigan, you just follow the town straight down, going straight south down the lake. So it's, about a 5-minute drive to Milwaukee Airport, but right there on Lake Michigan, was a blue collar town, just a big factory town, suburb of Milwaukee.
So did you go to a big high school, or was it a smaller school? Or
it was, things are, I learned about going on. Well, let's see, August of 2007 is when I moved to Georgia. So, I learned real quick that what a big high school is down here is a little bit different than was considered a big high school in Wisconsin. I had the graduating class or the population of my high school, my senior year, was 903 kids. And we were in the second biggest classification in terms of your football program. So they do things a little differently up there. Instead of, the more A's, the bigger your school is up there. They go division, kind of like college, like Division I's your biggest, Division II all the way down to 6 or 7. And instead of regions, they go conferences. So every conference has like a little symbol, kind of like colleges, and they have names like the Wisconsin Little 10 and the Parkland Conference and the Woodland Conference. But yeah, it was, we were in the second biggest group. We were a Division II school with a school of about 903 kids. So it was fairly big, considering the location of it. But it was, it was enjoyable. There's some parts about it that I miss, but I've been down here for 17 years now, 18 years. So I don't plan on going back anytime soon.
So did you just play football in high school, or did you play other sports?
I was a defensive tackle. I played defense, and I also threw shot and disc in high school. And so, my claim to fame is that I actually got to throw against Joe Thomas, the Hall of Famer left tackle from the Browns who went to Wisconsin. I got to throw in a track meet against him, and I was nowhere near as good as him, but I was fairly decent. So, that even led to me being down here right now. A lot of people think I'm crazy for it, but not being a head football coach, but I also coached the throwers at Discovery as well, just because I enjoyed it so much when I was in high school.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you have opportunity to go play college ball, or did you just go to school to go to school?
Yeah, it was, situation. I had, I was recruited by most of the Division III colleges in Wisconsin, which was another culture shock, moving from the north to the south was, the state of Wisconsin only has one Division I football team, and that's the Wisconsin Badgers. So everything else is Division III. So there aren't even any Division II or JUCOs or prep schools or anything like that, at least when I was up there. So if you weren't good enough to basically be a Badger or a, Big Ten type football player, your other options were going Division III. And that's also one of the reasons why I always tell people why Division III football is so big in the state of Wisconsin, because you have so many good football players that may not be, Division I caliber players, and they want to stay home. So they enroll in one of the WEOC conference schools. I ended up going to Wisconsin Whitewater. I didn't play. I went to play, but I realized that playing public school Division III football with no money involved and having to go to school full time and also having to work, have a full-time job to be able to get through college, that I probably wasn't going to be in the NFL. So I gave up football so I could get a job and get myself through school.
Well, did you know all along that you were going to teach and coach, or did you get in the wrong line?
No, I knew I was going to be a teacher. That was always something that I wanted to do. Coaching was definitely on my mind just because of the experiences that I had. And, I was one of the kids that enjoyed, PE class. I enjoyed being all athletics, doing everything, playing everything. And I knew that I wanted to be a physical education teacher and, hopefully get into a place to start coaching. I didn't realize I was going to start coaching as soon as what I did. Once I moved down here, that was fortunate. I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, that's what I went to school for, was to be a teacher.
Okay. I ask people that all the time because, sometimes you go to school to be an accountant or a doctor and you look over in the PE line and you're like, hey,
yeah,
that PE line looks pretty cool. I like PE in school.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. It's, where you also get a lot of, you hear a lot of stories now too about people that, got into coaching and then they realized that, to be able to have the biggest impact was then to become a teacher or be involved in the school, right, where they're coaching. And then they end up becoming teachers, because of the coaching aspect. But for me, it was always to be a teacher, and the coaching was just going to be a bonus.
So what was your first job out of college?
So my first job out of college, I followed a friend, my best friend growing up. He actually played quarterback for us when I was in high school, and he had an aunt and uncle that lived in Georgia, at Atlanta area, Alpharetta. And we used to come down during spring break and visit with them just because it gave us some place to go. I mean, Atlanta was warm for us coming from Wisconsin, so it wasn't the beach, but that was a pretty far southern drive for us Wisconsinites. And he was always going to move to Georgia, and I couldn't find a teaching job in the state of Wisconsin, so I gave him a call and I followed him down to Georgia. And I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about where I was going. I knew nothing about Gwinnett County or any of the counties in the state. And I just knew I had a connection down there and to try to find a teaching job. And I actually it's kind of a cool story. I sat one day and made phone calls to almost every school in Gwinnett County and basically just said, hey, this is Roy Groshek. I'm a recent graduate of University of Wisconsin Whitewater. I'm a physical education teacher, and I was wondering if you had any openings for jobs. Nope, sorry, we're full. Alrighty, thank you. Have a good day. Click, dialed the next phone number and sat there for about 3 hours. And I ended up calling this school called Fort Daniel Elementary School, which is a Mill Creek Elementary School in Decula. The address for that school is in Decula. And I gave my little spiel, and the nice old lady, her name was Carolyn, she said, well, it just so happened our PE teacher resigned this morning. And so I was like, really? And that was after about 3 hours. So she transferred me over to the assistant principal. His name was Dale Pugh. And he talked to me on the phone, and he said, well, I'm doing interviews Thursday and Friday. And I said, sir, I can't get down there that early, but if you're willing to interview me on Monday, I'll fly down there. And his answer to me was, well, that's a long way to go and a lot of money to spend for something that's not a guarantee. And I said, sir, if you're willing to sit down and talk to me, it's a risk I'm willing to take. So I flew down for the weekend and interviewed with him on Monday, and 2 weeks went by and I didn't hear anything. And, I was staying with my grandmother in what we like to call up north, Wisconsin, out in the woods. And I came home from I was working as a manager at a sporting goods store at the time. And my Georgia teaching certificate that I paid to have transferred from Wisconsin to Georgia came in the mail, and I tore it in half and threw it in the trash can. And about 30 minutes later, I get a phone call, and all I hear on the other line is, hey, Roy, are you ready to move to Georgia? And I don't want to say bad words on your podcast, but I believe I said, you got to be effing kidding me. And then he immediately apologized to this man, because I'm like, oh my gosh, could be my boss. And I'm cussing at him on the phone, and he's just laughing on the other side. And he said, no, it's okay. And I said, no, absolutely. So I said, well, this was a Wednesday. And I said, when do you need me down there by? He goes, Monday. And so I packed up everything I owned in a U-Haul trailer on the back of my 96 Dakota and drove from Wisconsin down to Georgia to start teaching, which I didn't know at the time that school had already started for 2-3 weeks, because in Wisconsin, we don't start school until after Labor Day.
Yeah, like normal humans.
Normal humans. Yeah. We have this thing called winter up there in seasons, and it gets nasty. So our summer is later, so I packed up and moved down and slept on an air mattress for a month in my buddy's apartment until I got my first Gwinnett County check, and the rest was history.
And that's awesome. Did you fish your certificate out of the trash and tape it back together? Or did you
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was, I ran to the garbage can immediately and made sure that it was salvageable. But that's a 100% true story. I mean, it was 30 minutes after I tore it in half that I got that phone call. So yeah, the only thing is that I always used to make fun of him. I haven't spoken to
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Principal Pugh, he became a principal at another elementary school. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I just wish I would have heard a little bit sooner than 2 weeks, and maybe I wouldn't have tore it in half, but I saved it, so it was good.
That's awesome. So you moved down to Georgia and you start teaching elementary PE. Did you just start calling around and saying, hey, I want to coach? Or, how'd you get into the coaching part of it?
Well, it's, and my wife, just to give everybody a heads up, and, all the coaches that know me, they know that this is probably going to be one of your longer podcasts, because being from the Midwest, I have a gift to gab, is what they like to say. So it's another interesting story if you'd like to hear it. But my wife's walking by with flashcards, making fun of me for talking too long. But I wasn't even really interested in coaching at the time. I moved down here and I was so focused on starting my teaching career and not screwing that up and making sure I was doing all the right things and establishing myself in a completely different area. And, I had horrible allergies and adjusting to that, and spent a lot of time in the doctor's office getting used to the climate and the allergies and everything. But what happened is that we had a student at our elementary school who was a second grader who was autistic. And whenever he was having a day where he wasn't having a very good day, so to speak, I used to tell all the teachers, if you're having trouble with him, you bring him to my gym, and I will take him as long as you need me to take him until he can get right. And I had so much fun working with him, and he enjoyed coming to the gym with me. And it was at the end of my first year teaching. So this would have been the summer, the May of 2008, where I was running my first big field day because we didn't have that in Wisconsin. So they were like, oh, by the way, you got to make this big field day for the whole school and it better be good. So you better start working on it. And his dad and the boys' mom and dad came up and said, we just want to let you know how much we appreciate everything you've done with our son. Like, what's your story, man? Like, where'd you come from? Because our son has done so much better this year spending time with you than what he's ever had. And we just started talking. And he said, well, I'm the computer tech guy over at Collins Hill High School. And a friend of mine, he's the new head football coach. And he's taken over there, Billy Wells. And you want me to ask him if you're interested, if he's looking for coaches or anything like that? And I said, well, sure, why not? So 2 days later, I get an email from Coach Wells, and he says, hey, Mr. Stebbins gave me your name and information, and would you like to come in and talk to me? So I went in and talked to him and told him about my situation and moving down here. And he said, well, yeah, you can start coaching ninth grade football with us. So that's how I got into coaching, was because of that. And my first job was coaching ninth grade tight ends for Collins Hill High School. And, the rest goes from there, but yeah, that was how I got into it. I wasn't looking, I wasn't searching. It kind of fell right into my lap, to be honest. Just being a nice guy and hanging out with a kid that needed somebody. Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to, be a teacher. At first, I wasn't even, concerned about, was I going to teach in high school or middle school or what grade level it was going to be. I was just really looking for a job, just to get started with my career, what I just racked up all that college debt for, and I ended up having such a great time. I spent 10 years at that elementary school. And after the first year I taught, the last 9 years, I would leave right from the end of the school day. The principal, speaking of how this worked out, the principal went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. So she was a Badger. So that might have been also why I got hired. I don't know. But she allowed me to leave right after my last class at the end of the day, about 30 minutes early, so I could drive from there to Collins Hill so that I could be there in time for ninth grade football practice. And that's how it went down. Well, cool. So how long did you stay at Collins Hill? So I coached at Collins Hill for 9 years. I started off, like I said, just being a position coach, learning so much about the difference of playing football to coaching football, whether it's ninth grade or varsity or whatever level. It was, it's completely different. And I had a really good mentor. We still keep in touch. His name was John Alexander, who was a former head coach in Georgia. And don't question me, I don't remember what school it was, and he's going to be mad at me if I don't remember it. I think it was Pius at one time, but his son was coming up through Buford High School, and he wanted to take a step back from coaching varsity. So he was running the ninth grade program at Collins Hill. So he basically taught me, I owe him everything as far as what it took to be a coach, the planning, the watching film, what to look for, from defense to offense, from everything, just learning how to be a football coach instead of somebody that knows a little bit about football and wanting to teach it to kids. You know what I'm saying? And so I was there for 9 years. And then after 3 years, John left, stopped coaching football there. And the first 2 years, Billy Wells was the head coach. And then he left to go open Lanier High School in Gwinnett. And Kevin Reach then took over as the head football coach at Collins Hill. And he made me the head ninth grade coach. Well, back then, way before COVID, right? We were averaging probably 55. Some years we had 60 kids on the ninth grade team alone, right? Just the ninth grade program. And because you were bringing up two A team and a B team worth of eighth graders from the rec program. So we had a lot of kids. And I told, when I became the head ninth grade coach, I told all the guys that were on my staff, I said, if we want to become varsity coaches, if we want to become defensive coordinators, if we want to become a head football coach someday, we need to treat this program as if it's our own program. Like, yes, we are under Coach Reach and we are all Collins Hill Eagles, but we practice on our own field away from everybody else. We're going to act as if this is our own program. So that prepares us for getting to the next level. right? So I ran the ninth grade program at Collins Hill for 6 years as the head. I was there for 9, but I was the head coach for 6 years. And when I say we ran it, I mean, I handled the physical forms. I handled the fundraisers and I handled all the parents. I put all the parents' names and information into my phone. So when they had questions, they called me. I went to the middle schools and did the recruiting fairs. We did our own workouts on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. We passed out the equipment. We did everything for that ninth grade program as if it was our own program. And that took a lot of pressure off of, Coach Reach having to deal with that, knowing that things were being done the right way. And it didn't help there. It also helped that I had a pretty good staff. One of the guys that was my offensive coordinator on the ninth grade, his first coaching gig, is now the head coach at Archer, Dante Williams.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Absolutely. He's one of my close buddies to this day. One of my secondary coaches on the ninth grade staff, his first coaching gig is now the head coach at Collins Hill, and that's Drew Swick. And then I had a defensive coordinator who was then elected the Gwinnett County Sheriff, and Kibo Taylor. So I have a pretty interesting coaching tree if you want to start it from ninth grade, but that's 3 coaches that we all coached together on that ninth grade program that now have all become head football coaches within Gwinnett County.
Yeah, I've tried to tell young coaches not to turn their noses up to ninth grade opportunities, because at the bigger schools, it's as if you're running from a logistics and number standpoint what amounts to a single A, small double A high school program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, obviously talent and size wise, it's not the same, but as far as, like you said, you've got the same numbers, you've got to get the buses, you've got your locker room, you've got your staff. I mean, 55, 60, 70 kids in your ninth grade program, that's more than most single A and double A teams have. And that's a great place for you to learn how to run your own program.
Oh, absolutely. And we laugh about this now, amongst coaches. And now that I've been around for a while, you look on Twitter and you see on the message boards, all the, got a third year coach looking for offensive coordinator position, or, things like that. And, I think what has happened is within the last, 10, 12 years or so, we tend to want to, everything follows from the top down, right? NFL, college, high school, right? And you see all these really young coaches at the college level being coordinators and calling plays and, hell, even in the NFL. And I think a lot of people, young guys, they come out of school or they come out of college and they think that automatically that is exactly what they should be. But when when I look back at my career, I literally went through the entire process from being a position coach on the ninth grade staff to becoming a head coach of a school in Gwinnett County. And I wouldn't change it for the world, because all the coaches that I worked for, from Collins Hill to Meadow Creek to Central to throughout my career, is to get to where I'm at. Not only was I learning how to coach, I was learning, things that, you agree with. You learn things that maybe I wouldn't do things that way. You learn just as much from negative things as positive things. Not that I had any negative situations, but, it's soaking up all that information that prepares you. Now, I coached ninth grade football for 9 years, and there's not a lot of people that would do that. But I truly believe that that's what prepared me to put me in position to do the best job that I can now in my career by going through that whole process.
So where did you go after your 9 years at Collins Hill?
Oh, so I started wanting to get out of elementary school, because it was, driving back and forth from a Mill Creek Elementary School to a Collins Hill High School, and, wanting to coach varsity and, wanting to be at the high school. I started coaching the throwers at Collins Hill as well. And the guy that ran the track program said, listen, I want to make you the other head track coach, but I need to get you in the building, so you can help me with this. And they just weren't going to let that happen at Collins Hill. So that's when I started looking. That's when I was like, you know what, my time has run its course here. If I want to further my career, I'm going to have to start, poking and prodding and getting my name out there. And I ended up getting an email from Coach Jason Carrera at Meadow Creek. And he wanted to bring me in to talk to me about coaching offensive line. So
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I went and had an interview with him, and he was able to give me that opportunity to not only be a varsity coach, but also to get a job teaching physical education at the high school where I was at. So it was the same year that Coach Reach resigned, and he ended up going to the Monroe area, closer to home for him. And I ended up leaving my elementary teaching job and coaching at Collins Hill to take the job over with Carrera at Meadow Creek. And a lot of people were questioning that move and thinking to me, people were saying to me, like, you don't want to go there. And why would you want to go to Meadow Creek? Well, that history of that school and all the bad things that everybody was told. And my answer to them was, well, not only am I going to get both things that I want, which is coaching varsity and also being in the high school, but those kids want to play football too. And, if you take pride in what you do and you believe that you're a good coach, then all kids deserve good coaching. You know what I'm saying? And, I saw what Jason was doing at Meadow Creek in his first 2 years there. They were, Meadow Creek had the two longest losing streaks in state history back to back. They were 2-98 from 2004 to 14. And in his first year, they won 3 games. In his second year, they went 1-9. But I could see, just by them being in the county, the things that he was trying to do there. And I wanted to be a part of it. So I went there, and the first year at Meadow Creek was the 2017 season. And he had two offensive line coaches. It was me and Chester Adams, who was a former Georgia Bulldog. And we coached the offensive line together. And that first year in 2017 that I was there was also the year that we went 7-3. And went to the state playoffs for the first time in school history. And we also had the leading rusher in the state. So it was kind of fun going on Facebook, taking a picture of the scoreboard at Central Gwinnett when we locked ourselves into the 4 seed, and putting on Facebook, to everybody who said, you don't want to go to Meadow Creek, I'll see you on November 10th, because that was the first week of the playoffs that year. So I'll never forget that. But that's where I ended up going. And that was probably the most fun that I had those 5 years at Meadow Creek with Coach Carrera, learning from him.
So your 5 years at Meadow Creek, you parlayed that into your next stop. And where was that?
So 5 years of Meadow Creek, and we went to the playoffs 3 out of those 5 years, and made a lot of friends, made a lot of close connections with the people on that staff. And Coach Carrera ended up, ruining everything, as we like to tease him about that. He got his doctorate, and I'll make sure he listens to this and hears that. We ruined everything for us. We had a good thing going over there. And he decided that it was time for him to take his career to the next level, and he became an athletic director. And he ended up becoming the athletic director at Central Gwinnett. And when all that stuff was going down, I was not considered to be a candidate at Meadow Creek High School. So I was in a really bad place. It was a time where it's like, I put in a lot of work here. I committed to this community and this program, and, helping out with a lot of different things. And, what is it else that I need to prove? You know what I'm saying? And, so I was actually to a point where I almost didn't coach at all in 2022. I ended up getting an offer to possibly go to West Hall and coach out there, but then it would have been leaving Gwinnett. And I didn't really want to leave Gwinnett because I had already had so many years in Gwinnett. And then Coach Carrera called me up and said, hey, don't make any decisions. I think I can get you in over here at Central because things are starting to shake up. So that ended up happening. And he was able to get me a PE job and be the offensive line coach over at Central Gwinnett with Coach Harold that he had just hired as the head coach.
Yeah, Coach Harold's one of my dudes. I like him too. He's a good man. So you get over there to Central Gwinnett, and obviously you left there to take the head coaching job at Discovery.
Correct. Yeah. And I didn't even know what was going to happen after that. I had a really great time in that year at Central Gwinnett. We shocked a lot of people that year too. We obviously had some good non-region games before we entered the gambit of going through, Buford and Mill Creek and Collins Hill and all the Gwinnett schools. But we had started that year off 5-0, and, we were having fun and getting those kids to buy into what he wanted to do over there. And I was also running the track program. I was the head track coach that year at Central. And I always knew that I would be looking around, for head coaching jobs. And I ended up getting a phone call to interview at Collins Hill because Lenny Gregory had just left Collins Hill. And so I said, hey, that's pretty awesome. So I went over and I interviewed with them, and me and Coach Swick even talked on the phone because me and him have stayed very, very close. He's one of my good friends in the coaching business, and, even outside of coaching, me and him have stayed very close. And we both basically I knew it was his job to begin with. He deserved it 100%. But we kind of joked with each other saying, hey, no matter who gets it, we want to work with the other guy, and so I knew that I knew that was, his job to get, and he had earned it and deserved it. And I'm very happy for him, but I wanted to take the opportunity to interview. A lot of people think that, interviews that you don't get anything out of it, but every interview is different in its experience. And if you get an opportunity to interview with a school for a job like that, you take it, no matter what you think or believe. You just got to go in and do it the best job you can and crush it. And then all of a sudden the Discovery job opened up, and I interviewed with them too. And, looking back on it, I try to tell people, I'm a believer, and, I'm a Christian. I was raised Catholic in Wisconsin. I'm not the type of guy that tells everybody that, well, I got this job because God wanted me to get it or didn't get it. But a lot of things happened in the last few years of my career and in life that make you, I tell people all the time, makes you look up a little bit and realize that maybe there is a reason, because I was able to get the job at Discovery, and I learned really quick that this is a place that I was meant to be, with the things that we had to do over here. And, I couldn't be any happier than being where I'm at right now.
So what was the transition like going from, you'd been a head ninth grade coach, but sitting in a 6A big school program, the head varsity coach, how much different was that for you?
Well, it was tough at first. It was, I wouldn't say it was overwhelming, just with the way things happened. They hired me on March 27th. So that was basically a month before spring football started. And as you heard, my entire career happened in Gwinnett County. So all of the people that I knew and made connections with were all Gwinnett County people. And the Gwinnett County teaching transfer process, it happens in like the first 2 weeks of February. So there was no coaches that I knew that I could get to come with me to stay from one Gwinnett school to another. So only 2 coaches from that staff at Discovery were still there, and they were 2 young coaches that couldn't leave. And I had to put together a staff of a bunch of people that I had never worked with. I hired people over the phone from 4-6 hours away, right? I went through the process of, interviewing people that everybody said that I should try to hire, right? And all those people said no. And I'm sitting there at my computer and I'm looking at my email, thinking about what am I going to do? And here's a list of people and emails that have reached out to me. And that was just another one of those moments where I kind of looked up and said, you know what, someone's trying to tell me something. And I started interviewing these guys over the phone. And my defensive coordinator, Hamilcar Kelly, he came up from Fitzgerald. My offensive coordinator for the last 2 years came down from Murray County. My quarterback's coach came from Rockmart. So these were all guys that came from hours away. Well, we started spring football and they couldn't all be there because either they were too far away to get there or their schools wouldn't let them leave or take days off to come coach. So we had to break up practices into offensive and defensive practices based off of who could get there on which days. And I think we averaged me and 2 or 3 other coaches at a time that were the only people there for that spring season. And, but we got through it. So it was a lot of that, right? It was a lot of, I didn't have time to think about the pressures or the crown, the weight of the crown, so to speak, of being a head varsity football coach in Gwinnett County because of all of the logistical things that I had to get done. Right. And that kept me busy. But when I tell all my coaches on my staff right now that, when I would talk to them about that story, that it's not a negative because it led me to them. You know what I'm saying? And, I feel like I have the right people with me, coaching and everything worked out. And, the relationships that I've made with them guys, I would have never made if I would have hired who people told me I was supposed to hire. Does that make sense? So, but once all the dust settled, there was that first year, there were some moments, where I sat there and I'm sitting in my office and I'm just kind of looking around like, I can't believe I'm sitting here. You know what I mean? Like, wow, this is real, and you learn really quick when you start getting the phone calls and emails from parents that you didn't normally get when you were an assistant coach at other schools.
Yeah. That phone never gets turned off, and you never have days off really when you're the head coach. And that's, something I do not begrudge you guys for at all.
Oh yeah. I used to get through a whole day on a charge, and now I got to keep a charger with me wherever I go to keep my phone charged, just because of the nonstop phone calls from colleges to people wanting you to buy stuff from them, from, parents to everything. Yeah. It can be overwhelming sometimes, but it's part of the deal.
And you're also the throwing coach for the track team.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'm a big believer in track and field. And if you look at, people don't want to talk about it, right? But if you look at some of the big time programs, and I'll use them for an example, but Buford High School, when you go to the track meets and you look at all these kids, all their players, everyone wants to talk about their athleticism and speed, right? And, even with Coach Harold once, he made a clip in the game that he put it in our coaches chat when the kid took the swing pass at the 5-yard line and smoked everybody and ran for a 95-yard touchdown. And I answered with a screenshot, and I said, well, there's his track times. He's a state 100 and 200 runner. You know what I mean? And all their kids run track. I mean, I think that there is such a focus on the culture down here of football. You got to be, if you're not working on football, you're not getting better. Well, in the off season, that is getting prepared for football. You're learning how to run faster, more explosiveness, how to jump higher, how to jump farther, all those different things from throwing. All your defensive and offensive linemen should be thrown, in my opinion, because it's all footwork, it's all balance, it's all explosiveness from your lower body and your core and your hips. And the finishing formation of a shot put is exactly where you're trying to tell your lineman to be when they're driving the sled. You know what I'm saying? Everything correlates. So I wasn't going to sit there and say, well, I'm the head football coach and I don't have time to coach track, but I'm going to tell all my players they need to, but they don't have a throwing coach. So I couldn't find it in my heart to sit there and make them go out there and throw and not have somebody that knows what they're doing coach them when I'm sitting right there. And I'm able to do that because my wife is extremely supportive. My wife, Sabrina, she lets me do whatever it is that I got to do as far as coaching these kids. And, without her, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I love her to death for that. But it's a lot of work, but I'm looking at it as I'm training my football players. You know what I'm saying? And I even had 2 girls that broke school records in the first year I was there in the throws. And, now I'm getting more and more of the boys to come out there and throw with me because they see the difference of what it does for them, when they're not doing football in that off season, they come out and throw with me. So I enjoy it a lot.
Oh, I'm all for them doing everything. I don't care if it's golf, tennis. I don't care. I want them to play everything. Track and field, basketball, football, wrestling. I want kids to do everything. And I can't stand looking on Twitter and seeing these kids that train in one sport, baseball, basketball, whatever it is, and they do it year round. And I'm like, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And it's just, yes. It's a bad gamble, in my opinion. And plus you're not getting to be a kid, and you're not being exposed to other kids and other, avenues of meeting more people. And as you touched on, which has been so important in your career, is building relationships with other people. And, they pay dividends down the road. And if you have a very small bubble or, for some people, it's not even a circle. It's more like a dot. Then, you're just kind of limiting yourself. And I don't like that for kids.
Well, we had in the first 2 years, he was a senior my first year. He played wide receiver, and great kid, great academics. He just wasn't a wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? If you told him to run through a brick wall, he would do it until he figured out how to do it. And he ended up going to Marshall on a full scholarship to run track. Right. Then I had another kid. He's graduating this year. I don't know what school he's going to go to yet, but he's got offers to go to college to be a long jumper. You know what I'm saying? So, just because you play football and you're good at football doesn't always mean those opportunities are going to be there for you, especially the way recruiting is nowadays. And they found out by running track that not only did they have a passion for football, but they also had a passion for track. And if I'm not going to be able to play football in college, I can still get money to go to school and further my education and still do something that I love to do. And when I think, there's coaches out there that they don't want their kids doing other things because they're not going to this camp or that workout or this activity or that activity in the off season. And to me, that's selfish because you don't know what everybody's path is going to be. And if they're out there every day at practice and they're practicing track and field, they're getting their work in. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be not only that, but they're going to come back and they're going to be faster. We had a kid that ran track. He got his personal record down in the 100 to 11 seconds flat. He was only a sophomore. He's a rising junior. And he came out this year in spring and just blew everybody away. Decided that he was going to focus on trying to play running back instead of DB, which he can still help us out at playing corner. But he's already in the game plan as far as, how are we going to get him carries playing running back? And it's just, he took one in the spring game down the sidelines and smoked everybody, which he would have never done had he not been in the weight room the way he was supposed to and running track, getting faster. And, the proof is there. You know what I'm saying? So I push all my kids to do as many things as they possibly can.
Well, that was a great segue into my next question. So how was spring for you guys this year?
Spring was great. It was probably one of the better springs I'd been a part of. It's a little biased since it's, my team now, but I will say that, the past 2 years, like I told all the players, we walked through football hell to get to where we are. The last 2 years, we were extremely young. This past year, we had, after game 4, we had a lot of injuries. So we and just to explain to you why I'm leading up to this is so you can understand. Our starting quarterback, we tried to run option because he was more of a running quarterback, and he never really wanted to play quarterback. But we had another kid that could play, and we said, well, you're getting all the plays when the ball is in your hand. When we're getting big plays, you want to go play slot receiver. And he smiled and he said, yes, sir, coach, whatever you want me to do. Well, after game 4, that young man had season-ending surgery on his foot. He broke it was actually the same injury that Tua had, I believe, in his ankle. And he was in a boot and had to have surgery. He was done for a year. The kid that we started playing quarterback quit and told me that his body's hurting and he's not going to be injured for basketball. And my sophomore quarterback had his hand in a cast with pins in his wrist. So we did not have a quarterback on our roster. I always told everybody, we don't have a quarterback. And they think, oh, he's that bad, huh? I'm like, no, we don't have one. Like there was not a kid on our team that had ever practiced at quarterback that was healthy to play the position.
And that's crazy. So you would think this day and time, kids, I can play quarterback. I want to be the quarterback.
No.
And they've changed. They're like, quarterback, oh, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and nobody wanted the smoke either. We were like, who wants to do it? And they're all standing around looking. So we started region play. In Gwinnett County at home against Buford with our starting middle linebacker taking the snaps at quarterback. And he had to play it the rest of the year.
That's awesome.
And he stepped up to the challenge and it was kind of hard to do anything when you can't throw the football and everybody's playing press man coverage on you and putting 7 in the box. So not only can you not throw, but now you can't run the ball. So it was brutal. So not only did we not have a quarterback, but we also had 8 sophomores that ended up starting. And you can't do that in Gwinnett County. we were so young, and we had to put kids in position that they normally wouldn't be in. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones. It's easy for a coach to say, guys, it's okay. You know, you're only sophomores and you're getting experience and keep fighting. But they're the ones out there getting their butt kicked, and trying to find a positive out of everything and what we went through. We didn't lose one kid. We didn't lose one player. They all came back, every single one of them. The way the kids talk to each other in their message groups and keeping everybody together, and the positivity. And they all came back, and they're healthy. Also in the Buford game, our best running back broke his foot for the rest of the year, and our starting left guard also tore his knee for the rest of the year. So we were starting 2 sophomores and a freshman on the offensive line. And when you're playing against a school like Mill Creek, and the defensive line coach from North Carolina standing there watching the 2 D tackles that those young guys have to try to block, can make things a little difficult, if you know what I mean. But they all came back, and it was an amazing spring. They got after it. We've actually got 3 quarterbacks that are a senior, a rising senior, junior, and a sophomore that are all competing for the job. The positivity was through the roof. The participation was through the roof, and it was exciting. We ended up losing our starting linebacker, not the one that played quarterback. He broke his foot on the second to last practice. But we went over to Seconder with Coach Lottie, who I've gotten to be really close with. He's a great, great man. And they ran us out of our own stadium last spring. And we didn't really know what kind of offense they were running, and all that misdirection with the wing T look and everything was hard to stop when you don't know it's coming. And but we knew about it this year. And it should have, after 3 quarters of varsity, it was 21-0, but we had 2 touchdowns that we should have had. You know, the young man accidentally dropped the football running down the sidelines that he would have scored on, that I already told you about. And we got down to the 3 and couldn't punch it in, but we moved the football. We stopped them. We got stops, and not one kid was negative on the sideline. They're like, we're good. We understand it's a spring game. You're trying to get different looks at different kids. We were rotating quarterbacks every series, so there was no consistency, but we were able to put everybody on film, and we were able to see who's going to be able to help us as we go through the summer and get ready for the fall based off of that spring game. And, you know, I'm at the beach, and I've still got players texting me. So, Coach, what day does it start? So, Coach, what time do we start? So, Coach, what camps are we going to? So the excitement is at all-time high, I believe. You know, we haven't felt this in 3 years that we've been there, and the whole coaching staff is excited after what we did this spring.
Well, that's awesome, Coach. I can't wait to see what you guys do this fall. And your journey has been one of the longest ones, coming from up north, up there in Wisconsin, and getting all the way down here, and from tearing
if I could just I tell them, if I could just find a way to get a nutrition plan of bratwurst, cheese, and Miller Lite, you know, we could really put some weight on these kids. But, you know, that's how I grew up, you know, but they frown upon some of that stuff down here, I guess. But, you know, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. And if there's ever anything in the world I can do for you, just let me know.
No, I appreciate it. It was a pleasure, and getting able to kind of tell my story out there, and, you know, to any of the young coaches that are listening, you know, just to trust the process. You know, sometimes you got to wait, you know, do your time, and if you're meant to be somewhere, it's going to happen, because I learned that. And, you know, I was able to, you know, take in a lot of information from a lot of mentors, a lot of head coaches that helped me along the way and taught me what it takes to do this job. And I wouldn't be in position to do this job if it wasn't for all the people that I was able to spend time with and work for throughout my career. So, you know, just trust the process, you know, because it'll work out in the end.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Game night's fun until someone spends 5 minutes lining up one shot. Chalk, breathe, re-chalk, still aiming. While they figure it out, I fire up Chumba Casino. I can spin anywhere, anytime, and there's always a new social casino game every week. Spins happen way faster than that shot. Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP. Because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.